Snake Farm is a top-down Vampire Survivors style action roguelike, which has a really unique twist because the difficulty curve is essentially your greed. It's been developed by solo developer Heather Flowers, and they've put together a really interesting concept. The game takes place over 10 waves or 10 days. And each day starts out with you in your snake farm, and the object of the game is to kill all of the snakes and survive, and do it by sunset, because when you kill a snake, it leaves behind snake oil and snake teeth. Snake oil gets converted into cash, which on the next wave you go to the shop and you can purchase more snakes to therefore put into the next round and every other round afterwards, because when you purchase a snake, it stays and reappears every single round afterwards, that you survive for anyway. Snake teeth go towards upgrading your weapons. Now, it's up to you, within reason obviously and within your own cash, how many snakes you put into the game and what type of snakes you're going to go for. And that's where I'm saying the difficulty is your greed, because you'll sit there and eye up, okay, I'll put in a volcano snake and it costs me $20 to do it, and it's going to give me back say 40 or 50 snake oil, which will turn into 40 or 50 dollars afterwards. So it's a good return on investment. But if you've already got tons of other snakes flying around everywhere, are you going to be able to cope with another ginormous snake spinning around shooting fireballs everywhere? Well, it's up to you. And what happens quite quickly is you think you've got it covered, and then you realise you've gone a bit too far, and you might have invited in a boss snake, or too many snakes that are really, really fast that will then encircle and surround you. And whilst you won't get damage from touching a snake, you will get damage from touching any of their projectiles. So all it takes is a couple of snakes that have got some fires coming out of their faces, or some poison clouds from the side, or electric bolts that snap down on you. It's very quick to see the tides turn in Snake Farm, and so you're always balancing that risk versus reward factor. This translates across the whole game as well, because essentially if you do survive the 10 rounds, and you might have played very, very conservative, for example, your score then gets put onto the online leaderboards, and there's 3 online leaderboards for the 3 different weapon types that are available in Snake Farm. And so the way how the score is kind of pulled together is the amount of money that you've got on the end, times the amount of snake teeth that you've left behind and not invested in upgrading your weapons. So again, risk versus reward there. Versus the general points that you've got for killing all of the various snakes along the way. So, and I forgot to mention as well, the wave always ends at 6 o'clock at night, so if you choose too many chonky snakes and don't kill them, you don't get the snake oil from them either, but you'll have spent all your time trying to avoid getting killed by them. So again, you've got that risk versus reward there. The real crux here is making sure that you don't get cornered by snakes. So if you run around with WASD on the keyboard, you'll run faster when you're not shooting versus when you are. You can, like Vampire Survivor style games, turn on auto shooting, or the default is actually using the mouse so that you can go around and actually click to shoot, or click and hold to shoot, depending on the weapon that you've got, and aim as you go. The 3 different weapons all play quite differently too, and although there's lots of other additional things that you can add on, such as sprinkler systems and water cans and a tractor, which can kill you just as much as kill the snakes themselves, it's all about how you play with these 3 different weapons that's really key. The first weapon is a trowel, and think of this like a shotgun. It's got quite good range, but it's very slow reload, but relatively good damage. The next one is a hose, and this is almost like an Uzi gun because it's got really, really fast fire, but not great damage. The trick here though is that water slows snakes down, and that's why you buy other things like sprinkler systems and watering cans as additional secondary weapons, because the more you fire water at a snake, the slower it gets, and this can be really helpful, particularly if you've got some really, really fast snakes that can outrun you, or you've got some like big snakes that will then spawn tinier snakes, and you're just thinking, stop, and you're trying to slow down their fire so that you can then kill them and get rid of them and nullify their aggression towards you. That's all really helpful. The third weapon is like a pitchfork, and think of this almost like a close combat melee style weapon, because it's not got great range unless you get some proper good upgrades for it, and it will have an extended range. But it's got a quite slow reload too. However, it pushes snakes back, and it has the highest damage. So you've got some different mechanics at play here. They all are viable. They all have their strengths and weaknesses, and your loadout will very much change depending on what is randomly put into the shop with all of those secondary weapons. And it's from the snake teeth that you collect from all of the different snakes that you kill that enable you to upgrade your weapons. However, if you're looking for a good score, you don't want to necessarily upgrade all of your weapons all of the time. So you've got that dichotomy going on there. I think this game is a really interesting and unique spin on the Vampire Survivors formula that warrants it to stand out from the crowd compared to everyone else. I found it really addictive because I was sitting there thinking, should I go for it? Should I not go for it? And invariably then regretting it when I went for it. But as I get better at runs and understand exactly what's a good way to tackle things, I started to find that my scores were increasing and I was getting a little bit more conscientiously bold with my choices. And that's really how you need to play Snake Farm, because eventually you'll be like, right, now's the time I can get in the big worms or the volcano worm or the invisible one. Christ, that was a pain. I don't recommend that one to anyone, to be honest. It was really doing my head in. But if you're going to be brave and you're going to go all in, like all guns blazing or all garden tools blazing, it's there for you if you want it. But just be prepared to die from your own greed and then go, won't do that next time. I found this game a joy to play. If I had some small negatives for it, I would say it's mouse and keyboard controls, and I do prefer a controller for this style because I always start to think of twin stick shooters when I'm playing these types of games, so it just took me a while to get used to all of that. I did find a tiny bit of slowdown at points as well when the maps are really busy towards the end of a run, but that's usually when I'd put in loads and loads and loads of tiny like cannon fodder snakes, because I was trying to build up my numbers that way so that I could then get enough snake teeth to upgrade my weapons so I could then drop in a boss right at the very end. So yeah, it might need a little bit of smoothing out in terms of frame rates and stuff like that, but in terms of like moment to moment gameplay, I did have a great blast with Snake Farm and I would recommend it. Written review will be over on highplanegames.com. Any comments or questions, leave them down below. Another cool one to add to your action roguelike genre that Vampire Survivors has an awful lot to answer for. Take care. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane-network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.